Hello and welcome to this class. My name is Birgit Koopsen and I'm a brand ambassador for Gelli Arts, and today we are going to make colorful cards, and I have my samples here. If you have been watching some of my videos before, you know that I always talk about how I always also use my cleanup paper in my art, and that I don't waste the paint that I'm rolling off my plate on my cleanup paper. But you are not seeing me actually using the paper much, so today I'm also going to use my cleanup paper. And I'm going to create some prints where I will then die cut shapes from, and show you a very easy way to create colorful cards that everybody can make. And so let's turn the camera and let me show you what we're going to do today. So these are my samples, and for the shapes, like the hearts on this one and the circles on this one, I have die cut the shapes from gel prints. And the fun thing is that the gel prints that I use to die cut from are usually the prints that didn't turn out pretty enough for any other purpose. So if I have prints that I'm not too excited about, then usually I cut out shapes, and then when you have a smaller area with parts of the print, then suddenly they turn out to be really fun and colorful and have a lot of texture that you don't actually see when you see the whole sheet. So if you have prints that you are not really happy with, then don't throw them away. There is always a purpose also for the not so great gel prints. So today I'm going to show you how to create prints with the textures used on these cards, and maybe they actually do turn out pretty, but of course you can also use pretty prints to do this. You don't have to wait until you have prints that didn't turn out nicely. For the background of these cards, I actually used my cleanup paper. So I always show my cleanup paper and how I don't throw that away, but how I use that. So when I'm gel printing, I usually keep rolling off my brayer to clean it in between colors on the scrap paper on the side, which is usually the cheapest copier paper that I can find. And I just keep brayering until I don't want to add any more layers, because I like it the way it is. Sometimes I put them aside to dry, because you can not keep braying off your paint on and on and on the same sheet, because then it gets too wet. So I put it apart when there's too much wet paint on it, and then later when it's dry, I put it back on the pile, and I will add more color to it. And then I get sheets like these, and I think they are too pretty to just throw away. I can use them, for instance, to do more printing on top, for create texture and print on top of this. Use this as my first layer. I can also die cut from these pages, but if they are really nice, I sometimes cut them into card size papers like these. And then they become nice backgrounds for my cards. And of course, they could also be backgrounds in my art journals. And as you can see, these are really pretty. At least I think they are really pretty. I really like them. And if I would try to make them this way, then they would never look the same. It's just because I randomly clean off my brayer and don't even think about it that I get these papers to look the way they are. So these make great backgrounds for my cards. And so here I have one that has almost only one color on the back, but here I have one that you can see I use my brayer to brayer off several colors and to get this fun background for this card. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to use 1 or 2 of these backgrounds to show you how I made the cards. I'm going to use my Gelli Arts 5x7 inch plate. I really like this size, especially also when I want to use the papers for card making, because they have the right size to use in my die cutting machine and I don't have to cut them up before I can use them. So I have my gel plate here on my sheet of paper. So I have the white of the paper shining through, which assures me that the colors that I put on top of the plate appear as the real colors. And because if I would put my plate on this background, then the colors would look differently. And that's why I always put my plate on a white sheet. And I secured my sheet of paper with some masking tape so my plate doesn't move around when I am brayering the paint on. So these 2 cards, the main textures you see in the shapes here in the circles and in the hearts are made with these texture tools. This one was made with thread and yarn. So I'm going to use that to create a sheet of paper to die cut from. On this card, I used a piece of lace like this. So you can see that, for instance, in this heart, I've put something on top, but I used the lace for this texture. And these hearts were all made with this tool. And this is a handmade tool that I made from a piece of cardboard and some hot glue. And I just drew circles of hot glue on top. And then I placed it on a sheet of baking paper to flatten it. So I get the same height of the hot glue everywhere, so I can also get an even texture on my plate. There is a video available on Michael's website and on the Gelli Arts website from a Michael's class I've taught before, explaining all about creating hot glue stamps and textures. So if you are interested, you can look that up and you can make your own texture tools with a hot glue gun. So I'm going to use these 3 textures to create some backgrounds or textured prints, and then I'm going to assemble the cards. So let's start with creating a couple of backgrounds to do the well, actually, I can just go with the flow and see where it goes with my texture tools. And I'm going to start with this one because I really like this one. So what you can do is, what I like to do when I create these textures is to actually roll out the paint only on a part of my plate and not on my entire plate, and then use my tool, my texture tool, to move the color around. So for instance, like this, and now I'm going to use this to stamp into my wet paint. And what I'm actually doing is removing paint from the plate with my tool, but then when I put it back down in another area, I'm going to move the color to another area, into an area where there is no color yet. I could also add several colors on the plate and then move the color into another color. But if you do it this way, then you can let this dry and then you can add more color on top, and that will then show in the open areas. So as you can see, the texture tool I made with the hot glue has a very organic look. You will never be able to create even lines with the heat gun. So you will always have a very organic feel when you use hot glue texture tools. Of course, you can make any shape you like. I've done a really simple here, just made circles, but of course you can create hearts and all kinds of shapes. You can even do lettering. Yeah, so there are many possibilities, but as I said, there is a video available that shows you exactly how to do it. So now I have to make sure that this layer is dry before I can add another layer. And although it's quite warm here, it's not really drying very fast. So while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm just going to put some of the backgrounds already on the cards. The cards I have here are from the Recollections collection from Michaels. Let me see if you can see that. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so these are cards that are 5 by 6.5 inch. They are available at Michaels in a variety of sizes and colors, and they come in a packaging where the cards are not yet folded. So I folded the cards already. They are in a packaging like this, unfolded, and they come with envelopes. So I have some here. Let me see what they are. Here they are. And I'm just going to glue my backgrounds to my cards. I'm going to use a tape runner from Scrapbook Adhesives. And I'm just going to apply the glue around the edges and a little bit in the middle. I don't like to use a wet adhesive to apply my background to the card. Oh, I've cut that a little bit short. Well, I'm just going to apply it anyway, and then later I can cut off a little bit of the white at the top, make the card a little bit smaller. That's funny. I've cut all of them. No, the other ones are the right size. So there's only one. Okay, let's do the other ones too. So I don't really like to use wet adhesive, I was saying, because that makes the paper wrinkle and not be flat on the card. Especially when you use this paper, as I said, it's just cheap Copier paper, and it is not very sturdy. So when it gets wet from the adhesive, then it starts to buckle and wrinkle, and you don't get a nice, even, flat piece of paper on top of your card like I have now. I will use a wet adhesive to apply the shapes to the card, because I usually do the printing, the background for the shapes on sturdier paper, but also I want them to be to have adhesive everywhere, the entire back side of the shape, because otherwise you might easily peel them off. But for this, I prefer an adhesive tape. Okay. And as you can see, I'm just eyeballing, I'm not measuring, and I'm okay with that. But of course, if you want to, you can use a ruler and get it exactly in the middle. But I think this is pretty already without anything on top. But yeah, I'm just going to finish it the way I was planning to. So here we go. I think this is dry enough for me to apply another layer. And I might even also then do some stamping in the second layer. I'm going to apply, let me see, one, maybe two colors. I want a yellow. Where is my yellow? There it is. So as you can see, I'm using Amsterdam Standard series, and I'm using Liquitex here. These are really nice paints to use for gel printing. I like to take the cap off. They have a really nice consistency and also really nice deep colors. There's a lot of pigments in these paints. So these are basically the student grade paints of the professional brands Amsterdam and Liquitex. And they are also both available. No, I can't get this off. I like to take these off because of this is always going to have a lot of paint and the paint is not coming out anymore. So I'd rather do it like this. So I'm now just going to randomly roll out the paint on top of the texture that I already have.
Birgit, when you have a second, can you show the glue that you had used and give us the name for the adhesive glue?
Oh, yes, I will. Okay, so I'm just going to place my paper on top. And then I can show the glue. So the glue I'm using is, it's called scrapbook adhesives. And it's a paint, it's a tape runner, and it is available at Michael's. So I'm not sure, this is a very old one. I'm not sure if they still have the ones that you can take this part out. So that's a refill. And then you can just use this over and over again, and you can just click it in here, and then you can also close it and toss it in your bag if you want to take it somewhere. And they are, what I also really like is they are also available in a green color, and the green color is a permanent or a repositionable adhesive. And I like that very much when I do masking. So if I want to mask areas on my gel print, for instance, I can apply my mask with the repositionable adhesive, and I can do the printing without the masks falling off. And then so I can put them in exactly the spot where I want them. And then later I can just remove them from the print. So that's also really nice. So let's pull this print, and there we go. Here we have our first print. And I actually really like this print, but that doesn't matter. As I said, you can also use the prints that you do like, but I'm not actually doing the cutting in this class, I already have a lot of die cuts ready, so I can show you how to create the cards. But this is a similar print to the print that where I die cut these hearts from, with the organic texture of the hot glue. So another way of creating prints for this purpose is using lace. So I really like to use lace on my gel plate because it is so delicate, and it is amazing how the gel plate picks up the really thin lines of the lace, and how many details you see in the texture that you will see on the print. It isn't always easy to get great prints from lace, because you also have to push the lace down, and then sometimes you remove paint from the open areas, which then disturbs the texture. And also, if you have too much paint on your plate, then the lace is simply not capable of lifting up enough paint to get that nice texture. But if you have everything right and you have the right amount of paint, you get the most beautiful print. So I'm just going to try and make a beautiful print out of this lace. And as I said, if it's not going to be perfect, then still it will be a great print for this kind of card making. So again, I'm going to apply a couple of colors. And then I'm going to roll them out in a very thin and even layer. It has to be really thin, because otherwise, as I said, the lace will not be capable of picking up enough of the paint. So I probably, I hardly ever have exactly the right amount of paint. Usually I have to roll off some paint on my scrap paper, but as I said before, that's okay too, because then the scrap paper can be used for all kinds of projects later. So I'm just going to clean off my brayer. I have to clean it up in between, because that's the way of taking away paint from the plate, because the brayer only can take up a certain amount of paint. And if I would just keep rolling, then the layer would not really get thinner, only drier. So I need to roll off the paint in order to be able to pick up more paint from the plate. So I'm going to place this on top. And now I have an acrylic block, which is meant for stamping, for cling stamps. And I really like to use this to push down the lace, because this way I don't get dirty fingers because I touch the paint, and secondly, because I don't touch the paint, I also don't mess up the texture of the lace. So the lace is thick enough that when I push down the acrylic block, that only the lace is touching the plate and not the acrylic block. And therefore, I have the best chance of getting a nice imprint in the paint if I have the right amount of paint. So let's just lift it up and see. And I think this is perfect. This is actually perfect. And I'm going to lift it up to give you a better look. This is better. So here you can see how detailed prints you can make on the gel plate. It picks up like every fiber. You will see even a hair will show on the gel plate. So, and I see from the corner of my eye a question about cotton fiber, if that would be better at absorbing the paint. And I suppose that is because of where the lace is made from, probably. But it doesn't, that doesn't really matter that much, because if you use the lace several times, which you will probably do, then after 2 or 3 prints, you will have a thin layer of acrylic paint covering the lace. And actually, it's because of that layer of paint that you get these really good prints. So maybe it might be that if you use the lace for the first time or for the second time, that your prints don't look as good as this one does, because the paint kind of better sticks to the thin layer of acrylic paint than it does on the fabric, no matter what kind of fabric the lace is. I don't know why this is not really showing sharp and crisp, but at least it's probably because of the light coming from above. But look at how pretty this is. So now again, I have to wait until this layer is dry before I can add the pickup layer. But because this was a really thin layer of acrylic paint, that shouldn't take too long. I can speed it up a little bit. Luckily, it's quite warm here today, so it is drying pretty fast. So for techniques like these, you really want your paint to dry fast, but there are, of course, also techniques where you want your paint to stay wet a little bit longer because you want more working time. Maybe you want to cover your plate and then use different textures in different areas and want some more time to actually be able to take away paint. In that case, if the paint is drying too fast, you can use something like a slow dry blending medium, like the one I have here from Liquitex. This is also available at Michael's. So if your paint is drying too fast, you can just add a couple of drops of this medium. I'm not going to show you because that's not what I want today. I want my paint to dry fast. But the easiest way to mix the slow dry medium with your paint is to roll out a few drops of the medium on the plate, then apply the paint on top and roll that out too, and then you mix it actually on the plate. So you don't waste any of the slow dry blending medium, and also don't waste any paint, because if you would mix it in a cup, for instance, then you will probably have too much mixed paint, and then you can't keep it, and you have to throw it away. And if you put it on the plate, you get a really nice and even mixture, and you don't waste anything. So I think this is dry enough to add the pickup layer. I don't know if any of you is new to gel printing, but in case there are people that have not done any gel printing before, if you leave your paint to dry on the plate, then you always need another layer to pick up the dried paint from the plate. You cannot pull dry product from the plate. So you either have to print straight away after creating the texture, and then you could print on an already colored background, or you can print on white paper, and then it will be white in the open areas. Or if you leave it to dry on the plate, then you need that extra layer. And I like to do it with the extra layer and be in charge of where I want which color to appear in my background, but also because I like to leave my paper on the plate until everything is dry. So I know for sure that I will have, I will pick up every bit of paint from the plate. So it is really important if you want to pull the print straight away. It is really important that you have the right amount of paint on the plate. So if you have too much paint on the plate, then you will not be able to pick up all of the paint from the plate, because your paper can only take so much paint, and then it will not also be able to pull the dry paint from the plate. So it has to be a really thin layer. And if you are not sure about how thin it should be, or if it is thin enough, then you can just leave your paper on the plate until everything is dry, and the paper will just pull up all of the paint, because the plate is made to release paint, and the paint will stick to the paper. So I make sure that my paper is completely dry, or at least, yeah, completely dry before I pull the print. Because if it's like half dry, half still moist, then you have a chance of ripping your paper, because in the areas where the paper is not dry, it tears easily. And then because the rest is dry, you will tear it. But I am pretty sure that I used the right amount of paint, so I'm confident enough to pull the print right away now, because obviously I don't want to sit around and wait too long for the paint to dry, which I would normally do. But because you're watching, I'm going to pull it right away. And I was right. I used the right amount of paint because everything came off. But look at that. Isn't that pretty? It's almost a shame to cut it up, right? But you know, you can make so many prints in such a short amount of time that I'm fine with cutting up my prints. Kimberly is asking, how big is the jelly plate? The one that I'm having here is a 5x7 plate. It's this one, 5x7 inch. But I also have 8x10 size plate, and there are several smaller ones too. But this one and the 8x10 plate are available at Michael's. So yeah, I think this is a really fun, nice size when you do card making and creating collage material. And the bigger one is really nice if you want to do standalone pieces of art, but also, of course, for collage material. The bigger one is also really nice. Okay, let me do one more texture, the one with the thread and the, I don't know what this is called. I don't know. I have no idea. It's not thread, it's twine. Is it twine? It might be twine. I don't know. Anyway, if you use thread on the gel plate, then even these thin threads will create a mask for the paint on top of the paint, and the paint will not be picked, the paint that's underneath will not be picked up in your print, and therefore you can create really fun, organic, playful prints. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm first going to create a colored background, just solid color, and I'm going to use really bright colors for my background, because this is going to show later in when I add my second layer. These colors are going to show in the open area. These are going to be the masked parts when I apply the thread. So I want it to be really bright and lighter colors, because then I can use a darker color for the second layer, and you get a really, really nice contrast. So I'm going to roll this out again.
Very good. When it comes to the paper, do you have a specific size paper you recommend when using the 5x7 plates?
That also depends on what you want to use the paper for. So for instance, for this purpose, when you do printing to create die cuts, then of course it doesn't really matter. Your paper doesn't have to be any bigger than the actual size of the plate, because everything like the white areas around are going to fall off anyway when you do the die cutting. So it can be the same size as the plate, or even a little bit smaller than the plate, and then you need a sheet on top when you do the rubbing, because then there will be paint around the areas. Or just a little bit bigger, and then of course the white borders are going to fall off. If you want to do prints that you want to use as they are, or maybe work on top, but you want the print to be in the middle of your sheet of paper, then you can use the mini placement tool that I have here. This is the mini placement tool. And the mini placement tool is handy for two purposes. One is if you want to do standalone prints, that you get always get your print exactly in the middle of your paper. And secondly, if you do layered prints, you will always get the second layer in exactly the same area as your first layer, and the third layer and the fourth layer and so on will always be in the exact same area. So therefore you can use the mini placement tool. And if you use the mini placement tool, your paper always needs to be 2 inches wider than your plate, because this is 1 inch and this is also 1 inch. So if I put my paper, let me see if I have a sheet here. I actually do have a sheet here. So this is a 7 by 9 inch sheet of paper. So it's 2 inches wider in total than my plate is. And if I put it in that corner, then I get an inch here, but also at the bottom and at this side, I will have a border of 1 inch. So then I have my my print perfectly in the middle. And maybe although it's not necessary for this specific class, it might be fun to show how that works. So I'm just going to make one more background print if I still have paint. And some of this, and let me do this one. Oh, I'm just going to do another solid layer of paint. Okay. So now I can place this exactly here in the corner and take my paper and place that in the corner of the placement tool, lining it up here at the top and here at the side. And now I just move that away. Then I can rub the paper. And then when I lift it up, I have my print in the middle of my paper with a white border. Now I see that I haven't really put my plate nicely. So it is stretched a little bit at the bottom. It was a little bit stretched at the bottom, why you have a little bit weird edge here, but it is in the middle of the paper, and if I would put it back and add another layer on top, then that layer would be in exactly the same position and not go outside of the already printed background. So that's what this tool is handy for. And other than that, you can basically print on any size of paper, but it's handier to use paper that is just slightly larger than your plate instead of using really big sheets of paper and then fill it with a smaller plate. So I cut my paper maximum at this size when I use the 5x7 plate. So that would be 7x9 inches.
Is there a specific paper that you recommend? We just have down the copier paper.
Yeah, so the copier paper is really nice for if you want to create collage material. But if you want the sturdier paper, like this paper that is really nice for card making, for instance, or for die cutting, then you can use the cardstock paper from the Recollections from Michael's. And so that's a little bit heavier card, and it's a really nice and a smooth card, so it doesn't have any texture. There's no texture in the paper, so you also don't get any visible texture in the print. So you could also use, for instance, watercolor paper if you do like texture. So then you can take watercolor paper that has a bit of a bigger fiber, and then you get a little bit of texture in there, which means that there will be little white dots where in the lower areas of the paper that don't pick up the paint. But that's a matter of taste, so it's very personal. I really like to use the paper that is as smooth as possible. You can also use like heavier copier paper, for instance. So let's do the texture with the thread, and then I'm going to finish one of the cards with my die cuts. So as I said, I'm going to use a darker colors for to cover up my the print that I already made. So because I really like the big contrast that you get, then of course you can also use lighter colors if you want less contrast, but then you should kind of make sure that your paints are opaque, because otherwise you will just see the colors of the first layer shine through. Too much paint, so I'm rolling off some of that. And there's no use in leaving too much paint on the plate, because you will not get nice prints if you use too much paint. You get some kind of texture in the paint that isn't really nice, and also you will not pick up all of the paint and therefore not get really crisp textures, because a lot of too much paint stays behind. So let's just put this on top of the paint. And now I'm going to add some thicker twine, if that's the right word. And I'm going to use this one. I like the colors of this one better than on this one. And I could actually now use the tool to get it in the same position, although it will not be in exactly the same position because I moved my plate a little bit. But let's just see. I'm going to cut it up anyway, right? So for this one, it's not that important. So as I said, the thread will now act as a mask between the paint and the paper. And therefore it will show the lines when I lift, when I pull the print. So I need to go in there with my fingers really well and make sure I push down the paper in all the areas where there is no thread or twine to get a nice print. Now let's see how this turned out. There we go. Nice. Nice texture, nice color contrast. Okay, so when you have a bunch of prints like these, you can then use die cuts to cut them out, or I can also pick that one up when it's dry. So I have to put this aside for now. You can use die cuts like there are at Michael's, there are a lot of dies available with just simple circles, stars, hearts, of course. You could do butterflies. I mean, there are so many different shapes available. You can use whatever you want. Of course, you can also cut them by hand if you don't have a die cutting machine. Punches, sometimes you have punches that are big enough to use for this, but you can also cut them by heart and by hand. And if you, for instance, want to cut hearts and you want to have them symmetrical, then it's very easy if you just fold a piece of paper and then you're just going to draw half a heart and cut it out. And then you will have a symmetrical heart. So you could do this from on your print and just cut out the actual hearts that you want to use. But of course, you're going to have this like the folding line in the middle, the fold in the middle. Although if you have a little bit thinner paper and there is paint on it, you will actually hardly see it because I don't know why, but you hardly see it. For instance, this one was also cut by hand that same way, and you can not even see that it was folded there in the middle. But if you don't want to fold your actual prints, then of course you can cut a couple of hearts like these and use them as templates to cut hearts from your prints. And otherwise, if you use die cutting machine or punches, you can just cut out a whole bunch of shapes in different sizes. So this one, these two, for instance, were cut from a page like, where is it? This with the lace. So this is a lace print. And then let me see if I also have, so these were cut from a print with thread. And let me see, this was also not the same, but also a glue gun texture. But I used leaf shapes there. I made leaf shapes there. So then you have all your cutouts and a background, and you just start looking for shapes that make a nice contrast with your background. And I really like, and they can be like I did here in every color of the rainbow, but they can also be more in a specific color range. For instance, if I would use orange, mostly orange for this card, or maybe also add a little bit of green. Let me see, maybe some green too. And then I like to let the shapes fall off my background a little bit. So it's not, they are not all inside of that frame, but it looks as if they are also continuing outside of that frame in some way. So I just play around and look for shapes in the colors that that get a nice contrast on my background. And therefore it's fun to have just a whole bunch of these die cuts. So if you have a pile of sheets, printed sheets that you don't like, then just take like 20 minutes or so and die cut a whole bunch of these shapes, and then you can just take your cleanup paper, cut out some card size backgrounds and just create a whole pile of cards in like no time. If you don't spend too much time thinking about which shape you want where, like I'm doing right now, I'm always having trouble making decisions because it, in my opinion, always has to be perfect. But this is kind of what I mean. So to glue down my shapes, I do like to use a fluid or a wet glue. And I really like the tacky glue. It's a really good glue. And I keep it upside down, as you could see. I keep it upside down in here. So I always have the glue at the tip of my bottle, because when it gets more empty and you keep it like this, it takes forever before the glue comes out. So that's why I do that. So I can just add, if it's not dried out, it often gets a little bit of the top kind of dries, and then you just have to peel that off. And that's why also this is inside here, because then I can open it. There we go. And then I can just apply it to the entire shape and put it on here. And then, as I said, I like to just cut off bits and place them just at the edge of my card. It's actually really simple and very easy. You can use whatever leftover prints or even painted papers you have, and create fun cards in no time. And then maybe you saw that in my samples, I also had some sentiments. So I used here. I used the Tim Holtz ideology, if that's the right way to pronounce it. And there are a bunch of words, and you can create your own sentiments because they are all just single words. Of course, you also have a lot of these where there are ready-made sentiments, and you can, of course, also just create a file on your computer with a lot of sentiments, cut them, print them out, and then cut them in strips. You can do that, and you can also use just small letter stamps and stamp your sentiments onto white card and then cut them in strips. So there are many ways to apply these sentiments to your cards. So let me just finish this one, and then I think I've told you everything that I told and showed you. Oh, I could pull that print. Maybe that's a nice thing, that you can see how beautiful the leftover paint on your plate, what beautiful prints you can make with leftover paint on your plate. So not to clean up your plate after making that first print and then move on to the next print, but actually also use that paint, because a lot of times that paint is even makes even better prints than the one that you started with. Okay, I'm just going to put this one here. I just have to finish it. Otherwise I will be here still be here in another hour. Okay, I think that looks great. And now I just have to add that sentiment, and then I have another beautiful card. So let me just quickly pull that print so you can see what a beautiful texture that will give. What color should I use to pick it up? I think I'm going to use a tiny little bit magenta, tiny little bit, and some white. If I have some, yes, I do. Oops, too much, unfortunately. Going to make it even thinner because I want to pick it up straight away. You don't have any time to wait for it to dry. So there we go. Oh, even my secured paper is moving. Okay, I hope that I used the right amount of paint and that it's going to pick up the texture, not completely, but good enough. Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. Okay, that was it for today. So now you know how you can use your cleanup paper and your not so nice gel prints to create beautiful cards. I hope that I will see you again next month. In September, I will be back with a class, a Gelli Arts class about printing with botanicals. So I hope to see you then. And for now, thank you for watching, and have a really nice day, and see you again soon, hopefully. Bye.